Wing Chun versus MMA. Who's going to win? I get this question a lot in my socials. I get it all the time. You know, put him in the MMA, UFC, MMA, MMA, UFC, UFC. Now, the problem is context. Now, what most of people don't understand, or it seems like most people don't understand on the internet, is that UFC and MMA in particular, and Wing Chun specifically for street fighting and self-defense are totally different contexts. Now, it's like saying golf will beat tennis, tennis will beat golf. It just doesn't make sense.
You just said it was paper.
It was some kind of paper made of thread.
But what if it got wet? Paper just like dissolves.
It was really strong paper.
That doesn't mean...
Now, let me explain why context is important. The context of MMA, it is a combat sport, meaning there are rules, restrictions, environment control, referees, so on and so forth. So, in an MMA match, you have rules. You're not allowed to strike to certain areas, to the eye, to the throat. You're not allowed to kick to the groin. You're not allowed to strike to the back of the body. There are also other restrictions, such as there's an environment. You have a certain environment with a nice, level, clean playing field. You also have a referee there that's making sure that everything's safe and keeping you along those rule sets. Also, there is not a chance of multiple attackers. You're not going to have someone jump you from the side or have 3 to 10 to 20 to 100 people that you're trying to fight. Another difference is that there is no weaponry involved, so you can't use weapons or strategically grab things that are in the environment and use it as a weapon within the actual fight. So context is king here. The context of combat sports is one thing. Now, if you look at the other side, we look at, for example, street fighting, whereas the context of when you'd use Wing Chun, because Wing Chun was developed hundreds of years ago from a Shaolin temple, which is thousands of years old, where they weren't doing combat sports, they were using it for real fighting, for real combat, and even for wars. So it was actually designed for maiming, destroying, or even killing people. Now, which is more self-defense as opposed to combat sports. So if we look at self-defense now, in self-defense, you can strike anywhere you like because there's no rules. You're just trying to protect yourself. You can break joints, you can kick to the groin, you can stick your thumb in their eyeballs, you can hit them in the back of the neck and head. Now look, a strike to the back of the neck can potentially kill you. Like we've heard of what's called a rabbit punch, right? You get a rabbit and you hit the rabbit on the back of the neck. That kills the rabbit. It's called a rabbit punch. That's why they're illegal. Now, if you take combat sports, and I'll give you the example of some famous boxers, Floyd Mayweather, you'll see him often, or a lot of boxers, they turn like this as a way to defend themselves, so they avoid the punch. But if you turn like this in a street fight, someone can kick you straight to the back of the head or neck. Now, is that a good idea? Probably not. Firstly, in street fighting, you can strike anywhere. There's no restrictions at all. So that means there'd be a different in training mechanics. Next, number of opponents. There are most fights that I've seen or been in have been multiple attackers. If you're dealing with one person here and let's just say you take him to the ground and you sit on top of him, you're making your head a soccer ball. His friend's just going to run up and kick your head straight off. Now, is that a good idea? Probably not. Are you going to double leg take down someone on the concrete and then hold them on the floor while their friends kick the shit out of you? I don't think so. So multiple attackers is another thing in real fighting, in street fighting or self-defense. What else? So multiple attackers, weapons, context of environment. So you don't know what the actual terrain is going to be like. Is it going to be a small closed environment? Is it going to be a big bar? Is it going to be an unleveled car park? There are so many different factors involved. So number one, Wing Chun versus MMA, different context. Tennis, golf, different context, different sport. So, to say, Wing Chun doesn't work in MMA, well, it's like MMA doesn't work in Wing Chun. They're different things. So, the most primary thing to keep in your mind is the context. Now, if we were to actually put those two up against each other, and the only way that I think you could really do this is if you could have Steve, right? Little Steve here and little Steve here were actually the exact same person. Steve here has no martial arts experience, and so does Steve here because they're the same person. They both train for 1 year. Steve 1 trains in MMA, Steve 2 trains in Wing Chun. Now, give them the right context. Let's put it in an MMA match. Yeah, most probably MMA Steve will win against Wing Chun Steve in the context of MMA. He'll use grappling, he'll use takedowns, he'll know the rule set. So he won't get disqualified for doing things that aren't allowed. And he'd probably beat Wing Chun Steve because of the context. Now, if you get Wing Chun Steve and MMA Steve in a real street fight, Wing Chun Steve goes straight for kicks to the groin, eye jabs. When he's behind him, he elbows him in the back of the neck. The context is different. Steve's friend jumps in. Wing Chun Steve's aware of the other opponents and uses them as shields because he's been trained for real self-defense. So the number one thing is context. Not everyone wants to be the UFC world champion. A lot of people just want to learn to defend themselves. They want to be able to protect their loved ones and their family. And learning a martial art for street self-defense is more specific and aligned to that. By no means is training MMA bad for self-defense, it's just a different context. So you're much better off doing MMA than not doing anything at all, because then you'll have a better understanding of movement, of striking, the ability to block, timing, range. So yes, it will help, but if you're looking at the most efficient style to practice, you need to think about the context and what you're trying to develop. If you want just street self-defense, then practice one that is aimed at street self-defense. And the ones that I know of is things like Wing Chun, which is based off no rules combat, or even Krav Maga or Sistema. There are a lot of arts that focus on street self-defense. But if you want to do combat sports and you want to be like your favorite UFC fighter, then do MMA. That makes sense because you want to get good at combat sports. Okay, hope this helped, guys. Remember, context is king, and I'll see you in my next video.